Okay, I think the numbers have slowed down, so we'll make a start. So firstly, thank you and welcome to the webinar this morning on recognising skills progression with digital credentials. My name's Matt Lardi, Head of Skills Solutions at City & Guilds, and I'm responsible for implementing the digital credential strategy. Before I start getting into the detail, just some housekeeping to run through with you. So everyone will be placed on mute. If you do have any questions as we go along, please post them in the question area. We'll try and answer these during the session, but if we don't get a chance, we will be publishing some frequently asked questions at the end, and these will be made available to everyone who's joined the session and will also be placed on our digital credential page on the City & Guilds website. Right, so what we're going to cover today. So firstly, some background, and we're going to cover what are credentials and the benefits of them as we see to the learner centre and employers. I'm pleased that we'll be joined by three guest speakers. Jason Venn, our industry manager for hospitality and catering, and Naz Lewis Humphrey from construction, who'll be talking about how digital credentials are being used in their sectors and why people are adopting them. And then I'm also pleased to welcome Colin McCarthy, who's one of our City & Guilds customers, who's going to talk about how they as a customer are using digital credentials to support their own products and services. And then finally, Matt Rogers, our service delivery manager, will give you a short demo of the system around how to accept a credential, sharing credentials, how they link out to job opportunities, and sharing on social media. We also have a couple of polls which we will take you through as we go through, which we want to get your feedback on. And the first one is just coming up. So the poll will appear on the screen. Which of these best describe your current awareness of digital credentials? And we would just ask you quickly to vote on one of them. More seconds to allow people to respond. Are we able to see the results? Great, so 17% not aware of them, 60% aware of them but not necessarily use them, 21% experience of using them, and 3% of extensive experience of using them. And that's interesting actually, because actually if we ran a similar poll probably about two years ago now, and it was actually 60% were not aware of them. So we're actually seeing much more awareness of them in the market, even though that's not necessarily translated to people having kind of extensive experience of them. So thank you for answering that question. So City & Guilds digital credential journey. Let me just go back a slide, please. So before we get into the detail, just a little background as to why City & Guilds is championing digital credentials. First thing to say, credentials are not new. They've been around for over 15 years. But our journey with them started back in 2016, where City & Guilds invested in a specialist credential provider called Digital Me and started to explore how credentials could really benefit our learners. Since then, we've issued over 400,000 credentials, mainly alongside our traditional qualification offer as an added value to our traditional paper certificates. And we now see that over half of all ILM learners, the Institute of Leadership and Management, are now being issued with digital credentials, and we expect City and Guilds learners to hit similar numbers in the next 2 years. Now, like many new initiatives, it's taken a while to establish a market, but we do know now that the market is starting to grow significantly, with worldwide over 50 million credentials being issued worldwide and growing at a very, very fast rate. And that has been accelerated in the last couple of years with everything that's been going on with the pandemic. And some research that we've recently carried out with some of our learners, especially those under the age of 30, show that actually they want to receive their recognition digitally, and definitely something we would encourage you to start talking to your learners about. We're not saying that paper is no more, but certainly the direction of travel, we believe, is digital. So we would encourage you to speak to your learners about how they would want to receive their recognition. So what is a digital credential for those that are not aware? The first thing to say, it's not just about the issuing of a digital badge or the credential itself. And please don't really worry about the term badge or credential. At City and Guilds, we tend to use the term credential, but they are used interchangeably. What's really important about the credentials is about the opportunities that they create. And you'll see on the screen there's a definition that I personally like from the Lumina Foundation back in 2015. I'll just give you a quick chance to read and digest it. So the key words to me are about it being a documented award issued by an authorised body, in the case it's City and Guilds, to show that an individual has met a specific learning outcome. And we'll take you through some examples in a minute of what they actually look like. And you'll also see on the screen that there are 5 visuals which show the 5 current categories within our own personal credential taxonomy of what we issue credentials against. So there's one around brand awareness, one around learning and development, there's one around certification, which some of you will probably be more familiar with, professional profiles, which is recognition of individuals' own achievements, and then also organisational relationships. So if you dig a bit deeper into each credential, what you will actually see, it's packed with lots of useful information which can really support an earner's journey. So in some ways it includes information you'd find on a traditional paper certificate, such as the qualification title, the grade, the date of issue, expiry date, but it also provides much more valuable information for the learner, such as a description of the credential, skills the earner should be able to demonstrate, potential age restrictions, and also the criteria which the learner has met to earn the credential, including detailed descriptions of the learning outcomes they have met to receive them. So actually, what does this really look like in real life? So you'll see on the screen here a real life example of a digital credential for one of our electrical qualifications. I think it's the 18th edition wiring regulations. You can see the visual design for the credential, which has the title, the qualification number, and would show a grade, but in this case the qualification is only a pass or fail. You'll also see on the right hand side the title of the qualification, that it was issued by City and Guilds, and then a description of the qualification, and below that the skills the learner will be able to demonstrate, and below that the earning criteria that is met to achieve the digital credentials. And we'll give you a proper demo, a live example. My colleague Matt Rogers will take you through that. But it's the skills tags that I would really point out on this one, on this page, because it links to real-time job opportunities being advertised in those areas. And this is the bit that we think is really quite interesting. And certainly when we go out and talk to our customers and our employers, it's the bit that really kind of they're interested in. So what do we see as the benefits of credentials? There are lots, don't get me wrong, but I would just highlight a couple. You'll see them on the screen. So for our centres, making sure that your certification is current. As I mentioned earlier, our research showed that most young learners want to receive their recognition digitally. They like paper, but actually we live in obviously a very digital world. So them being able to receive a credential digitally, share it, download it to their phone is quite exciting. It can help your learners find real-time local job opportunities or apprenticeships linked to the skills that they have already achieved. And the other thing that's starting to gain more traction is it can help your learners stand out from the crowd, either, as I said, by sharing them on social media, by allowing them to add the credentials to the CV. And we are starting within City and Guilds now, starting to have people who apply for jobs here who are not only just sending a blank CV, they are sending in links to their digital credentials, which is quite interesting. And some recent research that we carried out with learners showed that over a quarter of the learners who had received a digital credential had created potential new opportunities since claiming and sharing their credential on LinkedIn, on Facebook, etc. For employers, the feedback on what they really value is around the ability to verify the digital credential in real time to ensure that it's current or valid, and most importantly allows them to really unpick a learner's achievement through use of the information in the metadata, which they don't get with a traditional certificate. So they're able to unpick, well, actually, what did this learner do to earn this credential, the skills that they've got. And a lot of our qualification credentials also have really quite detailed learning outcomes as to what the learner would have studied before they actually achieved the credential. For the learners themselves, from research, you know, there are lots of benefits, but again, these are the key ones that they identify with. The link to real-time job opportunities is critical, helping the learners into a job or onto the next one, but also a central place to record all of their achievements, which as they go through life, they can build to, and as I said, even download into their iPhone wallet. We know youngsters like to share their success on social media. The ability to share credentials on Facebook, LinkedIn, and other social media platforms, whilst raising their own profile, is something that they are very keen to do. And you will probably, if you go on LinkedIn, or a frequent user of, you will start to see them appearing very, very frequently. And then lastly, a kind of slightly smaller benefit, it means also no more lost certificates. It means that learners can showcase their skills and what they've learned to potential employers. If like you did your O-levels, you've probably misplaced your certificates, but if you've got them digitally saved onto your phone, you've always got that record should you need them. So that's a kind of background to credentials. I've now got kind of 3 live examples that of how credentials are being used. So firstly, welcome Jason Ben, who's our industry manager for hospitality and catering.
Good morning, Matt.
Morning, Jason. Thanks for joining us today. So Jason, I know since we started issuing credentials for our City and Guilds catering hospitality qualifications, we've issued about 1,500, I think, digital credentials. Can you tell us how they've been received by the learners and the centres that are using them?
Yeah, I mean, we've had some real success with our credentials, and they've been really well received, Matt. And although I think it probably started a little bit slow, they really started to gain some serious momentum now. And what is great is learners are not only receiving the badges, but they're also sharing the badge. And like you alluded to earlier, they're really keen to showcase their success on social media. So yeah, it's great to see.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. But I'm also conscious as well that it's not just the qualifications within the hospitality sector that are using credentials. And I know there's organisations like World Chefs and Hosco have fully embraced credentials. And I was just wondering if you could explain a bit more about these programs and how they're kind of really championing credentials and the benefits to the learners.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, World Chefs. So through World Chefs, you can have your skills recognised in a range of culinary jobs. I think we've got a slide a little bit later on to run through that.
Alex, could you flick next slide?
Yeah, so this is a live. This is a screenshot of both my accounts on LinkedIn and Hosco. So what you can see there is on the right hand side, there's all my digital badges. I'm sure it's not the clearest picture there, but you can see the badges that I've received. And the beauty about it is what I've set up in both LinkedIn and Hosco is as soon as I receive my credential and I accept that credential for whatever I've achieved them in, they automatically go straight onto my account. So if you were to follow me on LinkedIn or Hosco, then you would get a visual of my credentials as and when I receive them, which is absolutely fantastic. Hosco, for anybody that doesn't know what Hosco is a very similar platform to LinkedIn, but they've got over 1 million people that are active on the Hosco site, and it's basically a platform for people who are working in the hospitality and catering sector, and being able to showcase my skills and my credentials on there is a great tool. Not for me, but for somebody that's wishing to pursue their career within the industry. It's a great tool for me to be able to find employment, or for employers to find me. So it's fantastic.
Brilliant, Jason. Can you tell us a bit more about the World Chefs? I think we've got a slide on that as well.
Yeah, of course I can. So World Chefs, working alongside World Chefs, we've got a range of culinary badges, starting from the Common Chef badge right up to Master Chef, but also Culinary Educator. So these badges, they recognise your skills in those wide range of culinary job roles. And this takes into account your core skills, your role-specific skills, and also an understanding of your career developments, your professional developments going forward. And it's a great tool also to support recognition, but it would also help a business with recognizing those individuals for what level they're working at. But also it's a great retention tool, and I think that's an important one for employers to bear in mind. It's also a great follow-on. So we offer, as a learner doing a qualification within City and Guilds, they would receive their digital credential. But if you could imagine that learner journey that they start at college, that they receive their digital credential on completion of the qualification that they've done, but then they can follow on throughout their career in culinary arts. And they can really showcase how they've gone through their career and gone to that next level, which is fantastic.
Brilliant, thank you, Jason, for joining us. I look forward to seeing more of your credentials being shared on the platform. Next speaker is welcome Naz Lewis Humphreys, who's our industry manager for construction. Are you there, Naz?
Yep. Good morning.
Morning. So I know within the construction and building services sector, we've actually now issued, I think, close to 40,000 digital credentials, making it probably the area that's really embraced credentials and the benefits that they bring. Do you have any insight as to why it's been so successful in this particular area?
Yeah, I mean, as Jason says, we have seen a huge amount of growth, and it's been obviously very popular within the construction industry. We think there's lots of factors, but obviously this does include building services engineering, which we think because of the 18th edition of these qualifications. But what we do know is the sector is also issuing more credentials because it suits the nature of the industry, just like catering and hospitality. And also having these mobile qualifications, it suits construction workers because they often work at different sites with different contracts, can be 2 or 3 within a year. So it does work very well for them to have that flexibility. And also with regards to the CSCS on-site cards, it's really, we know that they're going to be going electronic. So it's obviously really does work well to have the credentials married up with them.
Yeah, brilliant. So it's that kind of whole license to practice, the ability for an employer to validate a credential if a learner's got it on the phone.
Yeah.
That makes total sense. But I'm also aware that it's not just within qualifications within the construction sector that you've had some success as well. And I just wondered whether you could you talk about recently your new product. I think it's ready for construction, and about how it's using credentials.
Yeah, no, definitely. So Ready for Construction is a new online course that we just launched. It's a 3 to 4 hour digital course for learners, all learners, to understand what it's actually like to work within the sector and within construction. So within this course, the learner can discover a whole breadth of jobs and opportunities within the sector, and it gives learners actually the motivation to succeed within their actual studies and how to build a career in construction. And from this, they can actually gain a real sense and a flavour of what it's actually like to work in the sector. And it gives them the understanding of the skills, the attitudes and behaviours that employers will be looking for when they're recruiting. And then from that, the learners can complete a self-reflection task. They can, from that, identify if they actually have what it takes to work within the sector. And then once they've completed, they'll get some job search tips from employers themselves that have worked with us to create this course. And then this will eventually, hopefully, help them stand out when they're actually ready to start looking for a job. And then finally, on completion, they get the digital credential, which recognises their learning and then ultimately helps with their job search when they get started in the industry.
Brilliant. And I actually did complete the course the other day, Naz, and I've got to say I was very, very impressed with it and all of the things that you've just talked to, really. So I'm sure there'll be lots of those popping up on LinkedIn over the coming weeks and months.
Brilliant, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Naz. And then our last guest speaker is Colin McCarthy. Welcome, Colin. Are you there? Oh, are you there? Just check where Colin is. Are you there, Colin? I think you're on mute. Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, thanks. How are things?
Yeah, all good, all good. Nice to have you on the call today. Thanks for joining. So firstly, Colin, can you just tell us a bit about Waterford Wexford Training and what the organisation does?
Yeah, I suppose, look, Waterford Wexford Training Services provide training and apprenticeship courses throughout Waterford and Wexford. We're part of the Waterford Wexford Education Training Board. And we're one of 16 education training boards in Ireland who have the provision to deliver further education and training in this country. So we have a quite large spectrum of programs to deliver and provide, I suppose, apprenticeship, craft apprenticeship, traineeships, green skills courses, night class provision to learners in this part of the country. So we're very busy. Yeah.
I can imagine you are. Yeah. And I'm also aware you run a very successful training program through our Assured Recognition program, which you can see on screen. Can you tell us a bit about that course?
Yeah, I suppose one of the initiatives from government at the moment is green skills courses, and obviously because of that initiative and I suppose the drive for energy efficient housing, and the current standard is nearly zero energy building. We developed 10 NZEB programs in 2017 and they rolled out in late 2018. And I suppose we needed to get some form of recognition for those programs. And at that time, coincidentally, City Guilds had rolled out the Assured recognition service for providers. And I think we were one of the first providers to sign up for that. And I suppose the attraction to that service was the digital badge credentials. Obviously you had people for tradespeople, you had architects, auctioneers, home buyers, council workers, all needing to complete the various NZEB programs. And this digital credential service, I suppose it was a way of showcasing the talents or the skills that the learners would have got from completing the various NZEB programs and nearly zero energy efficient building programs. And we have a centre of excellence, which is recognised by the United Nations as a centre of excellence in Wexford. And we've put through close to 500 learners each year since late 2018. So it's quite substantial. And you know, you've traced people now upskilling in that area. You've council workers, auctioneers, architects, home buyers, all familiarise themselves with the near zero energy efficient building standard to be compliant with current building regulations. So we're certainly fulfilling you know, requirement within the building industry to make you know, people aware of the new standard, and to make sure all new builds are meeting the new standard, as well as we also offer a retrofit program, which is aligned to the NZEB programs, basically for any current buildings that need to I suppose enhance the energy efficiency of the housing, that we actually have a retrofit course which will, I suppose, again allow tradespeople or home buyers to actually I suppose the conditions or criteria to bring up their current houses to a retrofit energy efficient building standard to improve the efficiency of housing.
No, that's brilliant. So what would you say, Colin, are the main benefits? What value do they add to your organisation and to your learners specifically?
I suppose the learners, that's what we're here for, and that's what we're about. So I'll start with that. I suppose the attraction for learners is that, one, it showcases the skills that they've completed, showcases the course that they've done, and you know, I suppose they can share that with colleagues, they can share that with, you know, employers or potentially new employers. We've had a lot of self-employed people because of they have their own company through the trade. And again, it's not just you know, promoting themselves, it's also promoting the company as well at the same time. And obviously then by clicking on the badge shows the skills and the conditions of how, you know, how they achieve the badge, especially for the trade as people, because obviously if you're a carpenter, plumber, or electrician, or a plasterer, and so on, it's certainly a benefit to them because they are qualified people already. But again, because of completing the NZEB course, they've showed, because they've done the course, they're now up to speed with the current building regulations, and that's all detailed in the profile of the badge. So that's a great benefit to them. You know, we have council workers, architects, home buyers are all able to now you know, showcase the awareness of the program through the digital badge. So, and through ourselves, you can see yourself on the PowerPoint there. Our logo appears on the badge, so it's a way of promoting our brand, who we are, and getting our name out there. So it's certainly given, I suppose, great more exposure to the NZEB programs, not just from Waterford and Wexford, but also throughout the country. And I suppose it's certainly it's certainly from the Department of Housing and Climate, Department of Education Skills in this country, we're certainly at the forefront of leading the near zero energy efficient programs nationally, which is of great, I suppose, not just importance to WWETB, but also, I suppose, because of government initiative and to deliver green skills courses in this country. So we're certainly the driving force, you know, so that's a great reflection of the and digital badges have enhanced that process at the same time.
Yeah, obviously it's a very important subject and something that everyone should be concerned about. But I know I see a lot of these appearing on all over social media and getting lots of comments and likes that people have done it. And I guess if I was a tradesperson doing it, I'd have, you know, I've started to build up all my qualifications and then all of these additional courses as well, just to show that people I have got those skills. So that's brilliant, Colin. Thanks for joining today.
Thanks,
before I go on to Matt Rogers, who's going to give you a live demo, we've got our next poll question. So just let me read it out quickly. Are you aware that most sitting guilds, ILM qualifications and apprenticeships have digital credentials attached to them, which are issued directly to all learners upon completing their program? So Alex, if we could put the poll up. Just give everyone a couple more seconds, Alex, and if we can close it. Oh, so it's fairly evenly split there. 43% yes, 49% no, 10% don't know. So we have over 3,000 City and Guilds and ILM qualifications with digital credentials attached to them. All information is available on our website, but we'll send out links afterwards. But obviously, there's a bit more work to raise awareness of them amongst those on the poll. But they are available for, I would say, I think it's 3,000, which cover the majority of the registrations with our program. Right, so that's me nearly done. I'm just going to pass you over now to Matt Rogers, who's a service delivery manager in our team, who's actually going to give you a demo of the Credly system. Matt, over to you.
Cool. Oh, thank you very much. All right, just make sure that everyone can hear me and you can see my screen. Has that come through yet, Matt?
Yes, it's all good.
Yeah, perfect. All right, cool. So the plan is to sort of take you through a little bit of a walkthrough of the system and what happens from a learner's perspective. So when a credential is issued to an individual, and kind of everyone who's attending the webinar today will receive a credential, so you can take yourself through this process. You'll get an email that looks a little bit like this. So it will carry the brand of the issuing organisation, so in our case City and Guilds. It will show you the credential that you are receiving, and then the call to action, the thing we want the individual to do essentially is to click this green button here. And one of two things will happen. So if the individual has never received a credential on the platform before from any issuing organisation, they'll be taken through an account creation process. If they have already received a credential, what it will simply do is it'll ask them to log into the system, and that credential will be added to their portfolio, to their suite of credentials within the platform already. And that kind of next stage will look a little bit like this. So this is the account creation stage. So you just populate these fields, it creates your account within the system, you go through a verification process. Once that has happened, this is how it will look within the platform. So this is an earned credential within the system. So you'll see that it's carried through. You'll see that this is the individual that it was issued to, and you've got a number of kind of things that you can do at this particular point. So the first thing you can do is you can share that credential out. So if I click on the share button, it will show me the range of kind of social options. So I can push it to LinkedIn, whether that be your feed or whether that be your certifications panel. I can share it to Twitter, to Facebook. I can email it to an individual. I can share a link to that. I can embed it on a website. I can download the visual, so I can download the graphic itself and add it to an email signature, or I can kind of also publish that to the blockchain as well if I want to. The other element within the system as well is these skills tags here that was mentioned kind of earlier when Matt was showing one on the screen. All of these skills tags link to live data. Essentially kind of live job data. So if an individual clicks on any one of these, so if we choose qualifications, for example, it will take me through to relevant job postings where there is a reference to the term qualifications. I'm kind of aware that's a very broad kind of catch-all term, but our quals and our endpoint assessments and our credentials that we build within City and Guilds and ILM and the other business units have very specific skill tags based on the particular credential that is being earned by that individual. It knows I'm in the United Kingdom because that's where it's defaulted to from my profile settings, but I can then strip that down to a particular region. So I can say, right, well, within the Yorkshire and the Humber, I can then narrow that field down, and it will show me top job titles, the locality of those jobs, the salary bandings, potential employers within there, and then also any related skills. And if I click through onto any one of these, if I say, well, I want to be a care assistant, it will then allow me to go through to specific job postings based on that skills tag being evident in that particular job field. What an individual can also do, and I think this was one of the questions that was raised earlier, is I think that the specific question was, we're aware that kind of young people change their email address all of the time. And ultimately, kind of what you can do with your Credly profile and with your credential profile is you can receive credentials to multiple identifiers, to multiple email addresses. So I can say, right, my default, my main one is my work email address, but I have a number of other email addresses that you can issue those credentials to. And if that happens, so let's just say I receive one to my Matthew Rogers work email, for example, it will populate into the same profile. So I can then start to gather and garner credentials from both my kind of personal, my institute, my educational institution, my work-based learning, professional experiences, etc., and gather them all into one centralized portfolio. And it looks a little bit like this. So this is kind of a public view of kind of credentials that have been earned by me on the platform that are all kind of stored together. What we're then also able to do, and actually kind of what we're understanding a little bit more within City and Guilds, but also what we're finding in kind of third-party organisations are doing, is they want to see who has earned those credentials in the wider world. So if we take LinkedIn, for example, there is a specific kind of stock search term that says view my verified achievement from City and Guilds. Now you could replace from City and Guilds to from ILM, for example, but what that will allow you to do is see individuals that have earned credentials issued by City and Guilds, and allow you to kind of share on them, comment on them, repost them, and also kind of understand what's happening with those credentials in the wider ecosystem. And that search term works across kind of all of the social networks, so you can use it on Facebook and you can use it on Twitter as well. So that just steps through kind of that learner journey, that kind of learner process, and you'll be able to go through that as an individual, kind of when you earn your kind of credential for attending the webinar today. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen at that point, Matt, because I think there's some more slides to be shown that I'll talk through as well.
Yeah, we'll just bring them up in a second, Matt.
Right, thank you.
Just bear with us a second. Next slide, I think, please. Perfect.
Cool, that's great. So there's been a number of questions kind of come through about this, and I've answered a few of them in the chat and said we will come back to it. But ultimately, the way that you register your learners within the system, potentially either by an individual route or by an EDI file where you kind of bulk register learners into the system, doesn't natively carry or require the need for an email address to be done as part of that registration process. But for us to issue a credential to an individual, that email address is the key identifier that we need. And so there is a bulk upload process that can happen. So once you've enrolled your learners within the system, you can either go through on a one-by-one basis if you're dealing with kind of small learner numbers and manually edit the registration detail for that individual and add an email address in. Or if you get in touch with us, we can send you across kind of template files and user guides on how to bulk upload email addresses into the system, and that would allow you essentially to do it en masse. So you can upload kind of hundreds up to 1,000 learners into the system, and their email address is matching it to their enrollment number. And one of the questions that came in was, how does this apply to learners that have already been certified? Can we apply this in a retrospective state? And ultimately, kind of the answer is yes, we can. So once those email addresses are in the system, if a learner has not been certified, at the point of certification, they will fall into what we kind of call our BAU, our kind of normal issuing processes, and they will receive their credentials once they have been certified. If, however, you're going, right, well, I've got some learners from 2 years ago, but I want to get their email addresses in the system and I want to issue them credentials, as long as you're kind of communicating that process with us, so that's the concept there, that DC service team at cityandguilds.com. Once you've enrolled, once you've added those email addresses, to those enrollment numbers, you can request that we pull a retrospective issuing file. And essentially what that means is we'll go back, 2, 3, 4, however many years you require us to pull that retrospective data out of the system and issue those credentials to learners that have already been certified, previously. And so that process can kind of run side by side. And again, because they're ad hoc reports, as long as there is communication between you and us, we can get those kind of files issued and pushed out. But if you want any more information on that bulk upload process, just get in touch with DC service team at cityandguilds.com, and we've got template files and we've got kind of a user guide that will be able to step you through that journey and how that works. If you can just skip to the next slide for me. Cool. So essentially this is probably just a repetition of what I've said, but there is a step-by-step guide on how to do it, how to add those email addresses into Walled Garden, and then there's also there's a video and a user guide to do that, and then there's also a bulk upload guide as well, around kind of how to do that process. But all of these are available on cityandguilds.com, but again, get in touch and we can send those out to you. And then if you just skip on to the next slide. Cool. And then there's just some resources again available in the same places that are specifically targeted at learners and helping you and us and them understand kind of the benefits and why credentials should be, you know, what's the rationale for utilizing them. So there are 3 reasons why you should share your digital credentials out, because we're big advocates of, just because we issue those credentials to individuals, if they then subsequently do nothing with them, we've kind of missed half the point. So it's all around driving that right acceptance data. We want those individuals to accept the credentials, we want them to subsequently share those out and be recognized for their achievements. And there's some guides on here on kind of how to do that, how to claim it, and how to share your credential as well. And again, there's one additional email address at the bottom. There's our DC service team email, but there's also the digital support email as well. And I think one of the other questions that came in was, again, around retrospective earning of credentials. And yes, we can pull, you know, kind of retrospective reports if you've uploaded kind of email addresses into the system, but there is also an ability for a learner to self-claim for a credential. So let's say they've got a copy of their paper certificate, they're able to get in touch, particularly with the digital support team, and say, look, I've got this piece of paper, I'd like my digital credential for it, please. And we can then manage that process with that individual on a case-by-case basis as well. Cool, thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Next slide. Yeah, so firstly, thank you all for listening. I hope you found it useful and informative. Before we close the session, as Matt said, we will be issuing all of the people who joined the session today with a digital credential, so please do look out for that and have a play around with the system. We will be issuing a survey after the session to get your feedback, and that will also include links to some of the documents that Matt has talked through. We will be aiming to answer the frequently asked questions in the next kind of 10 days, and we'll send those out with the links as well. And then just lastly, just a reminder that you know, your learners will miss out unless we do have a valid email for them when they are registered. So be that a college email or a personal email, with the, as Matt showed, the ability to change that within the system. So thank you for listening. That brings us to the close of the session. Hope you found it informative, and we will be running some more sessions on some of the other areas, so do look out for those. Thank you.